If you are in the market for a high-powered, low-cost tactical flashlight, this is definitely your video. 3 bangers to talk about, and maybe one of the best on the market. So, it's a weird review because every flashlight gets better as we go along, and they're all very similar. And the FC12C is certainly an improvement over the past design. They have added a buck driver. They have continuous outputs from low all the way to high, and you can adjust it as you see fit. It still has that great tactical mode, and they have a better job with heat management than in the past version. So all of these things are big improvements, except that in this particular context, and because they are very similar in purpose, I can't see a reason why I'd ever recommend you buying the FC12C when these other 2 flashlights exist. So I'm going to move it aside. Not to say that it's not good, but considering all of these are very similar in price, the improvements for the Wurkkos TD07 and the Sofirn SK1 are just so much better, it's not even worth considering the FC12C. And they use similar batteries, they are similar in size. In fact, the Sofirn SK1 is a little bit smaller than this flashlight as well, so in length at least. Now, why are we comparing 2 different brands of flashlights at the same time? Well, first of all, Sofirn is the OEM for Wurkkos. So they're made in the exact same factory. And as we probably would expect, with the same LEDs and same throw, same pretty much everything, even the clips are interchangeable, it's worth comparing them together and kind of making a decision based on which one you would prefer, which is why we're doing so. The only thing I've really noticed that's different between the 2 is a slight improvement on UI for the SK1. So let's talk about the hardware for a second. So we have a not particularly aggressive crenulated bezel. We have a tack ring. Now, keeping in mind that this does not come with your standard reversible clip, although, and I'll just take it off the FC12 here, all of these clips are interchangeable quite easily, and you can buy spare clips on their website. And I do think it'd be worth potentially buying this on the website because right now you can get it with the 18650 tube on top of having it with the tack ring. So, it has a tack ring, being aware that this will likely get you in trouble in a number of countries. If you show up with a flashlight like this, not only will you likely get it taken away, you might even be arrested for carrying a weapon similar to brass knuckles. Now in America, because it doesn't have a closed clip, it's not considered brass knuckles, which is an interesting thing, but be aware of that. And I'm not a huge fan of the fact that they didn't include a 5-cent piece of metal as a spare in the box. Yet another ding to the TD07. With that being said, that's almost the extent of my negatives when it comes to this particular flashlight. Now, this has been reviewed by quite a number of people at this point, and I want to highlight one in particular, and that's Flashaholics, which is another YouTube channel. And they have done so much work and given me so much data. It's only fair that if you are going to buy this after the review, that you would go to their video and use their affiliate link. Now, I do believe that they are in the UK, but at least give them a shout out, give them a follow and say thanks because their input was incredibly important to this video and they continue to be a great resource to the flashlight community and to me. So please do that. All right, so 3 different modes. We have tack, lockout, and EDC, and it's just changed with a small flick of the rotary switch. I really like the rotary switch. In fact, rotary switches are some of my favorite UI designs in existence, especially when they're put around a tail switch like this one is. So we have our tack mode, and tack mode basically gives you 2 different things. It gives you turbo and it gives you strobe. And the way it works is if you half press the button, you get them a maximum output. A full press will give you the strobe. Okay, and then once you let go, it will automatically turn off. So you don't really have to worry about leaving this in your pocket in tack mode. You'd have to have a constant pressure on that button and only a very specific pressure in order for it to stay on. And that's just not really going to be something that's a problem. It's also worth noting that when you have strobe, which is fully pressed, it's not hot. If I were to do that with the turbo, however, which is like a perfect amount of pressure, it's a different ball game. That's way too much heat and would likely even burn my hand. So not going to be an issue when it's in that mode, and you can always leave it in lockout. Now, speaking of lockout, if you half press the button, you will get moonlight, and I don't know if you can really call this a moonlight mode. I think, I can't remember if it's 5 lumens or 1 lumen, but regardless, because of the ratio of candle power to lumens on this flashlight, it's way too bright, even in the moonlight. You're going to use this mode the most when it comes to daily activity because it's plenty bright enough. In fact, this is probably brighter than most AAA flashlights can reach on their maximum output. That's how bright the moonlight is on this thing. So keeping that in mind. You then also have your conventional everyday mode memory. So if I half press, it'll turn on to what is remembered last, and then half pressing again will cycle through the modes. 1, 2, 3, and back to low. I do not believe this includes turbo. So this is a slightly different user interface than the one you will find on the SK1, which is also a little bit better. So half press turns it on and full press doesn't do anything, which I find very strange. I would rather it be full press on, which is what this has. So it's just a little bit wonky. Now, let's go to outputs. Why is this so much better than the FC12? So this has a maximum candle power, which is the more important measure when we're talking about tactile flashlights. And that tells you how much beam concentration you have. This has a maximum beam concentration in written form of around 54,000 candle power to go along with the 1300 lumens listed on their spec sheet. In reality, this is showing a slightly lower number when it comes to lumen count, but it is showing a significantly higher candle power during testing. So I'm going to specifically show you this screenshot from Flashaholics where he tested the standard battery from the TD07 and got 73,000 candle power. That is way more than stated. And with a vape cell, which has a higher drain and is just a better quality battery, he was able to not only stay within spec for lumens, but have over 80,000 candle power in beam concentration. That would put it so much beyond the average compact tactical flashlight. It's not even funny. There aren't many flashlights on the entire market of any price that are going to be quite that good. I think the one from Surefire is a little bit more powerful for sure. I'm trying to think which ones are also in that same category, but not all that many. And those flashlights have issues with their user interface. They're not as versatile, and they're, well, at least 5 times more expensive. So there really isn't much out there to compete. Very impressive from Wurkkos. Of note, all of these have Type-C charging ports, all of them do. It's only really a slight concern with the TD07 because it uses an 18350, which usually wants a half an amp of charging, whereas this charges between 1 and 2 amps. So it's a little bit hot to charge, but from what I can see, it's not making the battery too hot in the course of charging it. Just be aware of that. If you have a higher quality battery with a lower internal resistance, like the vape cell, you're probably gonna notice even less heat. So just be aware of that. This is also not an issue with the 18650 body that you can get with this flashlight or the SK1. Why are we finishing it off with the SK1? This is what happens when you do everything correct and even get a price below 40 bucks. This is cheaper than the TD07 in pretty much all aspects. And in fact, it's probably about the same or equal, maybe even cheaper than the FC12C right now. And they've done everything correct. I don't say that often, but I'm telling you right now, the only thing I can critique about the SK1 is that I would like to have a slightly more tapered approach with the reversible clip so it slides into the pocket easier. And that's like super minor. It's not even really a big deal. Conversely, they could also put the clip going the opposite direction and then I could carry it upside down, but there will be some that won't like that as much. Regardless, that's it. That's all I have negative to say. The tack mode works exactly the same as the SK1, so you hold press, or sorry, half press for turbo, full press for strobe. Lockout works exactly the same way. Half press gives you moonlight, and then on the case of the EDC mode, or they're calling it duty, nothing happens when you half press, which is great. Full press turns on the memorized mode, and if you half press but hold it, it will turn on moonlight, and then you can half press again to cycle up. So it means that regardless of what you have memorized, you can always find the moonlight mode, and you're less likely to accidentally turn it on because it doesn't work unless you fully depress the button. So in my opinion, this has a slightly better user interface, and it's cheaper with the same performance. And just like, and maybe even more so, just like with the TD07, if you put a high quality, high drain battery into this, you're going to supercharge it beyond like any specs that it has listed. And as far as I can tell, the difference in the 18350 from the best battery to like the OK battery is a lot less than when it comes to the 18650, where you can find a high drain battery that really kicks the crap out of everything else. I don't know which one specifically. I'm going to leave it up to the professionals on that, but I highly recommend doing your research because you can push this beyond the normal. The only downside of doing so is that if you're using turbo a lot on this flashlight, you're going to reduce its lifespan. So instead of maybe 10,000 hours of usable time, you might get 6,000, 7,000 hours, which won't really matter. By the time you get that much usage out of this, it'll probably have been lost or new technology will have come out. Needless to say, these are some of the best options that you will find on the market today. It's not really close. I would happily recommend either one, just being aware that this only comes with the 18650 tube, and it comes with the reversible clip, and the TD07 has the option of using either the 18350 tube or the 18650 tube, but if you buy it on their website, you're going to want to add that additional clip so that you won't get in trouble with some authorities who might, well, make an issue of this particular tack ring. It's a good time to be into flashlights, and man, are we getting a lot for our money. Yeah, that's pretty much all there is to say. As always, thank you for your time, and we'll talk again soon.